Hi, I'm Dr. Guy Reekman, the director at Vital Life Health Centers. Our goal at the center is to help people realize their full potential. And that looks different for everyone. We had a patient in the other day who had a stroke a couple of years ago. And his goal wasn't to run a marathon. His goal was pretty simple, was to be able to walk without falling down. And important to him was the ability to use his right arm, which he hadn't used in a couple of years. And I remember the day we sat down with him after a couple of weeks of care, and he struggled a bit and slowly raised his hand up and touched his nose. And I remember all of us that were in the room that day began to tear up. You think, well, why would someone tear up just because someone could reach up and touch their nose? And it really was about what our goal here at the center is, which is to help people realize their best life. And that looks different for everyone. I remember a poem called The Dangerous Cliff, and it talks about an individual who fell from the cliff and landed down in the valley of sickness and disease, and the ambulance that was there to pick him up, and how people defended that why would we need a fence on the edge of a cliff if the ambulance works in the valley. People are looking for healthcare today that really is healthcare designed to take care of their condition without the use of drugs and surgery. Not that there isn't a place for drugs and surgery at appropriate times, but people are saying today we don't want that to be our only choice, and we don't want that to be our first choice. We'd like to find out how to regain our health naturally. And then there are people that, like on the edge of the cliff, say, you know what, I don't even want to fall into the valley of sickness and disease. I believe that if I eat well and exercise and reduce stress and I'm mindful and I live an appropriate lifestyle that includes low cost, low risk interventions like chiropractic, massage, etc., that I can actually create a fence on the edge of the cliff and live a healthy life and not need dangerous drugs and surgery except in emergencies. No one's saying that if I fall in the valley of sickness and disease, get in a car accident, and I'm laying there with a severed artery and I'm going to die in 5 minutes, that I need nutritional advice. But people are saying, what I'd like to do is put these things into an appropriate relationship. And then there are people today, and I believe the bulk of people who get up every morning who are concerned with expressing their optimum physical well-being, their optimum emotional and relational well-being. People that are interested in being creative and working in jobs that are productive and meaningful to them. And so at Vital Life Health Centers, we really look at people from initial intensive care to this corrective care, building the fence, to building a lifestyle of health and well-being. We know, for example, that the fastest growing demographic in the United States today are people that are going to live to be 100 years of age. That's not the question any longer. The question is, what are the last 25 years going to be like? Are they going to be filled with vibrancy and energy and travel and communications and relationships and living out our dreams? Are they going to be in a nursing home, unaware of our environment and the people that we've loved who come in to see us? Are we going to be wearing diapers because we can't control our own body functions? What are the last 25 years going to be like? And you can't make that decision at age 75. That's a decision that has to be made early that has to do with the lifestyle that we live. At Vital Life Health Centers, we start with the premise that the body is an intelligent, self-developing, self-healing, self-maintaining mechanism. Think about this. The greatest scientist in the world has yet to create one living cell from scratch. Yet your body is creating 100,000 of them every second that you're sitting here listening to this. And so at Vital Life Health Centers, we're less concerned with trying to manipulate the organism through drugs and surgery back to what we think it should be. And we're more concerned with how do we get rid of the interferences that are stopping it from doing what it's supposed to do and does naturally, which is develop, maintain, and repair itself. Think about this. If I cut the corpse's finger, what drug, what surgery, what radiation treatment, what chiropractic care, what nutritional supplement is going to make the finger heal up? And someone might say, well, that's a silly example. It's not going to heal because the corpse is obviously dead. And that's just the point. The only thing that heals is an alive, well-functioning body. And so today, we're looking at how do we get the body to function at its optimum level and do what it's supposed to do, which is be an intelligent, self-developing, self-healing, self-maintaining mechanism. What is it then that controls the function of the body? And of course, in science today, we know what that is. It's the nerve system. We know that the nerve system's job is to control and coordinate all the cells, tissues, and organs in the body, and via the immune system, adapt the body to an ever-changing environment. In fact, did you know that the largest neurological structure in your body is not your brain or spinal cord, it's actually your skin. It comes from the same embryonic tissue. And so scientists today know that we are our nerve system. And that in fact, the rest of the structures in our body are there to keep this nerve system alive and healthy, so it can go through this process of development, through this process of conscious evolution, if you will, during the course of its lifetime. You are your nerve system. You say, yeah, but when I'm in love, I feel it with my heart. Well, your heart really doesn't have those kinds of feelings. It's your brain that's having that feeling. It may be expressed through your heart. It's where all your memory is in your brain. It's your consciousness, your communications. And so we are our nerve systems, and it's critical, if we're going to be healthy and function properly, that we keep our nerve systems as free of interference as possible. So what happens if you interfere with your nerve system? Well, we know three things occur. First, you have abnormal function in the body, since the nerve system controls function. You have diseases and infirmities that you wouldn't otherwise have developed, and you have reduced quantity and quality of life. Best example, remember Superman, Christopher Reeve? He fell off his horse and broke his neck. Christopher Reeve had parts of his body that weren't functioning. In fact, some parts of his body didn't function at all. We call that paralysis. And Christopher Reeve, in fact, got diseases and infirmities that he wouldn't have had he not damaged his nerve system. In fact, on his death certificate, they wrote down that he died of pneumonia. But he got pneumonia because his immune system was compromised due to the damage to his nerve system, and he couldn't fight off what you and I normally fight off every single day. And finally, Christopher Reeves, without doubt, lived a lower quality and a shorter quantity of life than he would have had he not damaged his nerve system. Nerve system interference produces malfunction, diseases and infirmities, and reduced quantity and quality of life. The question then is, what interferes with our nerve system? And we know that there are three primary interferences. One is physical trauma, falling off a horse and breaking your neck. Although there are other kinds of physical trauma, such as concussion, which is a very big issue today. We know that at least 50% of all the kids playing high school football have had one or more major concussions. And kids playing soccer, it seems, are even more at risk for concussions because of headers. And so having your brain rattled around inside of your head, while it may result in some loss of memory, some headaches, maybe even some throwing up, because in our society we're taught that when the symptoms go away, everything is fine, that as soon as these symptoms go away, we tell the kids go back and play. And yet we know that these things are cumulative. All you have to do is look at Muhammad Ali and what the end of his life was like to know that these concussions are cumulative over the course of a lifetime. We also know that there are physical traumas, such as damaging the function of your spine, which the brain and spinal cord runs through. And when you damage the spine, we call that subluxation in chiropractic. It interferes with the nerve system. So physical traumas to the nerve system. The second type of interference to the nerve system are environmental toxins, cigarette smoke, pesticides in our foods, mercury in the fillings in our teeth and in the vaccines that are binders. We know, for example, that drugs interfere with the nerve system. Found that out in the 60s, that when you take drugs, your nerve system is altered, including environmental toxins. So we know that these chemicals that come from the outside in have a detrimental effect on the nerve system, again, producing abnormal function, diseases and infirmities over time, and a reduced quantity and quality of life. And finally, there are emotional traumas. Someone sees their best friend blown up in a roadside bomb in Iraq. They may not have been traumatized physically, but they come home with serious conditions, post-traumatic stress disorder in the extreme. But we also know, in keeping track of our vets, that we lose 22 more vets every week due to suicide as compared to the entire rest of the population combined. An 8-year-old girl sexually abused when she's growing up, for example. All of these traumas are logged in our nerve system, and they interfere with our body's ability to be a whole, healthy, productive human being. So what about this interference that chiropractors look at called subluxation? This is simply a condition in which the spine has been traumatized, malfunctions, and interferes with the nerve system. It frequently happens at birth as children are pulled out through the birth canal, or especially during C-sections. It can happen with the falls that children experience, with whiplash injuries, with traumas during sports. And of course, as we grow up as an adult, there are obviously multiple traumas to our spine and nerve system that cause malfunction, ultimately diseases and infirmities, reduced quantity and quality of life. The primary focus of a chiropractor is to look at your nerve system, find where these subluxations are and correct them, and then make sure that your nerve system is working at its optimal potential throughout the course of your lifetime. So what happens when you come into the Vital Life Health Centers? First thing we do is we'll examine you and your health, your body as a whole. And then we want to look at the nerve system. Where is it interfered with? Has it been damaged? How do we identify that? And then third, we look at the spine. How is the spine affecting the nerve system? And to do that, we do everything from palpation, feeling, if you will, with our hands, to X-ray analysis, to heat analysis, etc. The best in instrumentation to analyze the spine, the nerve system, and how it's impacting your body. Once we've done that examination, we then sit down with the doctors that are trained the best in the world here at the Vital Life Health Centers, and we look at this from a number of perspectives, not only from a chiropractic standpoint, but with our functional neurologists that work at the Vital Life Health Centers. And then we come up with a recommended package of care. Would it be care here? Should it be somewhere else? Or some combination? We always recommend what's best for you. And then finally, when we begin the care, it typically will begin with chiropractic care, which is gentle care designed to correct the functions of the spine, allowing the nervous system to be freed of interference. But also people have had a lot of trauma to their nerve systems by the time they get here. And so if necessary, we may have our functional neurologists do an analysis of traumas to the brain, etc. So we see a lot of children with ADHD, with dyslexia, children with autism. We see corporate executives that are headed towards neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We see a lot of the Navy SEALs who, because of their training and the work that they do to protect us, have had a lot of trauma to their nerve system. And then we also at Vital Life Health Centers want to provide you with resources and information, education if you will, so that we can empower you to make your own choices and decisions. Ultimately, you're the one that has to decide what you're going to do with your health and with your family's health. And to do that, you need to have information. The choices that we've made, in fact, the choices that people have made that cause them to wind up coming to the Vital Life Health Centers were really an extension of the choices their parents made. And they're showing up with the same type of problems. And unless that person makes different choices for the rest of their lifetime, they're going to keep repeating these same issues over and over again, pass this information on to their children, and their children will continue to make the same choices and wind up with the same problems. We want to make sure at Vital Life Health Centers that we give you the information necessary to make different choices about healthcare so that you and your family can experience your best life.